by the group. So, due to the devastating fires experienced on Kythera this summer, our first presentation is by two botanists, Alex Kocyan and Jasmin Joshi, who have been studying the island for the past 30 years, first as visitors and then as part-time residents. Alex is curator of the Botanical Museum of the University of Zurich, while Jasmin is a botanist and researcher for landscape and conservation of open space and threatened plants, also at the university. Their title is From Ashes to Renewal, Do Mediterranean Ecosystems Need Our Help to Recover? They'll speak for about 20 to 30 minutes, after which they'll answer questions submitted in Zoom's chat feature. And we kindly ask the audience to restrict this time for Kythera Green members. And depending on the audience response in the chat room and the length of time taken up, we'll then open the question session via raised hand sharing, with the intention of not exceeding an hour and 15 minutes altogether. So now with that, I turn it over to Alex and Jasmin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Alex Kocyan, and
my name is Jasmin Joshi. You see, we will share our screen.
Yes.
On speaking time.
We're sitting next together, so
on the kitchen table.
Yes. And now, as everybody has experienced, has seen, has heard, that we had two major fires here on Kythera in the last few years, and soon after the fires finished, discussion started whether one should do something to help nature to recover. And we want to give you some thoughts about these things. We will pass some subjects in this talk. Oops, now I have to see what's going on. We have 5 main subjects, and we'll give you first a general introduction to the Mediterranean vegetation, then what is special about the vegetation in Kythera, why are fires potentially important for this kind of islands, are there natural adaptations to wildfires, and what measures should be taken after fires. So the Mediterranean type climate regions are of these type of biodiversity landscapes, which are called megadiverse. They are super diverse. We have 25 global hotspots of diversity in both regions of species of endemics. These Mediterranean type climate regions occupy only a bit more than 2% of Earth's surface. These landscapes hold about 15 to 20% of the world's total vascular plant species. That's enormous. So Kythera is part of that megadiversity. We are here on an island which has just 278 square kilometers. We have about 1,000 native vascular species of plants. As we are, just a little caveat, we are speaking about plants. We are botanists. We have similar numbers on the zoological side, but we are not speaking about that because we are not experts on that. On Kythera, we have about 70 species of plants which are only found in Greece. So these species are endemic to Greece, not on Kythera endemic, but in Greece. So that's why Kythera has an importance in conservation of these species. So to speak a bit more general about Kythera and to give you an impression of what is going on the island, you have for sure realized when you go to the north of the island, vegetation changes. It looks a bit different. That's why this is because in the north, this is this dark part you see in the north, there is a different soil type. It's more acidic, so different species can grow there. Whereas in the south and in the very north, it's all calcareous. These are the areas where you find most of the orchids, for example. So this is the general impression. Overall, Kythera has a super complicated geology, so that's really nothing easy here. Generally, the vegetation is composed, the natural vegetation would be composed of oak forests. For example, in the north, you have this oak with this large fruits, which you for sure have seen, sometimes huge trees. Oh, sorry. That was, sorry, now we made a problem.
Yeah.
What happened now?
Can you still see the slides?
You still see the slides?
But we don't see it anymore.
Oh,
Um,
one moment. Go on.
okay. But what you find in other parts of Kythera, especially in deep valleys, you find other parts of this very typical original vegetation. It's this oak forest type of vegetation. This is composed often of these species, this holly oak, Quercus ilex. It's quite a rare species here on Kythera. Much more common is that species. That's the Quercus coccifera, Kermes oak. And this is also part of the so-called macchia. You know that type of vegetation, which is the second most frequent vegetation, where you have these oaks, this Quercus coccifera, which with thorny leaves. And this is a vegetation you usually can't pass. It's extremely dense. And the other more frequent type of vegetation, this is that type of vegetation. It's called, in Kythera, or in Greece, it's called phrygana. It's a hip-high vegetation, shrubs, quite thorny, quite unpleasant. Most of them are quite unpleasant, though you have also all the cistus flowers inside there. And then further down, you see the open meadows, which are super important for orchids again, for example. But also for where you have a lot of other flowers, also for bees and so on, super important. Okay, where do we find these types of vegetation, Mediterranean vegetation? We find it not only here in the Mediterranean area, though it's the largest, by far largest vegetation of Mediterranean region. We find it also in California, chaparral. We find it in Chile. We found it in fynbos, and we find it also in the west of California, of Australia. And they are all characterized by these summer droughts but winter rain. This is extremely typical. We have here also regular fires in this area, whereas in other parts of Europe, for example, you don't have regular fires. So fire is part of the ecology. Yeah? And again, this is the situation we have on Kythera. On the left, you have the 2017 fire, and on the right side, the July 25 fire, almost the same region again. Huh? And you remember these pictures, so the fire rushing through the whole, through the vegetation, leaving back difficult situations, but I give now over to Jasmin.
So we saw that the fires are an important part on the development of vegetation worldwide, and fires have been an ecological factor for at least the last 420 million years on this planet. So every day we have tens of thousands of thunderstorms with millions of lightning strikes globally. And if we have dry soils and combustible material, then natural fires can occur. We have also naturally volcanic eruptions, which can cause fires. But, for example, in the European Union, 96% of the fires are not caused by natural causes, but are caused by human activity, like cigarette butts which are thrown away, campfires, waste burnings, sparks from overhead power lines, brush cutters, as well as arson. And in the Mediterranean area in Europe, it's actually 99% of the fires which are started due to human action. And actually, with global climate change, the frequency of fires in Europe has increased. This year, it was incredibly widespread. So I just found numbers by August 2025, and they already reached or were higher. The area burned in August this year was higher than the whole area burned in the until now most fire-prone year 2017, where it also burned on Kythera. So it's an important factor, and it's becoming more and more frequent. And the natural frequency of fire depends on environmental factors like what's the pre-fire vegetation types, what is what was the fire severity in the last fire. And these fires, they shape the vegetation. On Kythera, for example, we have this shrub vegetation, which Alex already introduced, the phrygana. Phrygana can develop or can be maintained if it burns every 10 to 50 years, maybe even the vegetation type survives if it burns every 6 years, depending on the soil. If it burns more, then the phrygana cannot regenerate and it will become grassland and very often very dry grassland and a desert type vegetation. If it does not burn for 30 to 40 years, then tall macchia vegetation or pine forest vegetation can start to develop. And this macchia vegetation is maintained if it only burns every 30 to 100 years. And if it burns less frequently, then there is a chance that the natural oak forests will establish again. Okay.
So the question is now, after these two devastating fires, is there need to help nature again, to come to stand up again? After we've said that fire is part of the system, after we said after we said that time is a crucial factor. So this is a picture of some measures in 2018, an area which some trees were planted. This is the area just in the first small-scale fire on the west of the island in early July 25, just a day after the fire, before the rain came again. So it really looked like end time. It looked everything was destroyed, but
to really understand what's going on and whether special measures are needed to nature to recover, one should have a look at the ecology of the fires. So very quickly, in general, three types of fires in wildfires are distinguished. There are ground fires in the soil, which do not occur in Kythera because they need organic peat soil, so they occur in the tropics or in Siberia in the north. Then there are surface fires and there are crown fires. Okay, so surface fires, and that's what we had, for example, in early July in the western part. You see the picture above on top. Surface fires are very rapid. They are so-called cold fires, so they reach temperatures, they say, of about 100 degrees Celsius, and they spread rapidly, but do not really heat up extremely the area. Whereas if we have crown fires are very intense. They spread from the ground to the tree canopy. They develop if we have a high fuel load. That means a lot of dry material, a lot of dry biomass, like especially fine biomass like dry needles increase the likelihood of crown fires. And we have crown fires very often if we have strong winds, so like the Meltemi in Kythera, and if we have steep slopes, for example. So the landscape is also really important for the development of these hot fires, because crown fires can get up to 1000 degrees Celsius.
But if you go to an area which was affected by a cold fire, roughly 100 degree when it rushes over, you soon will see that you will have a layer of black ash, and then soon after you have the normal soil again, and you'll see that the fire didn't go deeper inside. And after a few weeks, you will see that. These are oaks, Quercus coctifera, after 10 weeks after the summer fire, just resprouting. Or that was in the 2000, after the 2018 fire, an area which was a phrygana, full with bulbous species, or this was 2 years after a fire. You see already these pink plants. These orchid plants, Orchis quadripunctata. So again, is it needed that we do something?
Okay, so it maybe makes sense to look at the experiences of other areas. So, for example, on Chios, it has also burned in the last years quite heavily, and there have been ecologists from Greece looking at the effects of wildfires on Chios and analyzing the recovery and the regeneration of the vegetation. There are areas on Chios that have burned once in 2016, or areas that have been burned twice in 2012 and 2016. So quite similar actually to the situation in Kythera, where we have large areas that have been burned twice. So the ecologists, they analyzed the satellite data and estimated from the satellite data the severity of the burn sites. And they also took the data from the satellite data and calculated so-called NDVI index. So that's an index that measuring the photosynthesis or the greenness of the land. So the the higher the revegetation, the greener the land. And with this index, they can assess how good the vegetation developed after the fires. So what did I find? Interestingly, and that is actually a good sign, they did not find a significant effect on vegetation regeneration between areas that were burned once versus those areas that were burned twice. So even areas that were burned twice within that time span, they also were able to regenerate. But what the people found was that the first year after the fires was the crucial year. So the, the patterns of regeneration was different, and that let the people conclude that there should be a period, an extended period, that should be allowed for burned areas to regenerate before any actions are taken. So meaning that there should not be too many disturbances. Why? Because this Mediterranean vegetation, as we showed before, is actually adapted to wildfires. It's a part of the Mediterranean ecosystems. Many plants have developed adaptations how to deal with that situation. For example, most of the native shrubs in the Mediterranean and also in Kythera, they can re-sprout so that they sprout from the rootstock after fire. And they can do so because these cold surface fire, they are not really going into the ground. So if the root survives, if the heat is not too high in the ground, then these species can resprout and grow again. So this kind of species is especially frequent if we have about every 20 years a fire, so cold fires without too much biomass. And another type of adaptation are the so-called reseeders, or the seeders or reseeders. So that are plant species that actually do not survive a fire, they die, but their seeds are either buried in the soil or are either released after a fire. And very often we even have species that the seeds are triggered to germinate by ashes or by smoke actually from the fires. So these two species, for example, they are important types of this kind of reseeders. We have also on the bottom of these slides, we have some phlomis and some lavandula and other species that are actually quite typically have seeds that where the germination is triggered by the chemical substances that is released by fire. Other species that Alex also showed are the bulbs. So the species, the geophytes that have renewal buds from tubers just below the ground, and they can also regenerate. Or on top is an example from the Western Mediterranean, from an oak species not native to Kythera. It's the cork oak, which has a really, really big bark. The bark is used as a cork for wine bottles. And of course, the tree does not produce this bark for us. It produces this bark as a security or a measure that protects the stem and the living cells from fire. Okay. We have species that are planted in Kythera. They are native in Greece, but not in Kythera. They have another adaptation. They have so-called serotinous cones. So, for example, the Aleppo pine produces cones that normally are closed. You see it here on the left bottom corner. And after a fire, they start to open. So these pines, they regenerate after fire with the seeds that are released after the fires. What is also important is that these pinus, these Aleppo pines, they also tend to accumulate dry needles and other burnable material on the forest floor. So they're promoting fires, but they're also, in a way, surviving fires. So having Aleppo pines increases the fire chance.
So all this would imply that nature has a lot of potential to recover itself, but we have the problem that we have goats and sheep on the islands, all over Greece, all over the Mediterranean. And look, this is a picture which I made in last November on top of Mermigaris. Well, goats were already present and started to eat on things, which is really not a good thing. And this is the picture of Mount Mermigaris from the top region in October 24. That means about 6-7 years ago since the last fire. Look, this is the recovered vegetation, but in 7 years it could be much, much bigger if the goats wouldn't be there. And the problem really there is we have goats, we have not a lot of soil, we have drought up there. So this is a deadly combination, so to say. Huh? So what kind of measures could we take to avoid things, to avoid to protect and encourage natural regeneration? So first of all, we should avoid further disturbances after the fire, clearly saying keep sheep and goats out of the system. And we should conserve the unburned areas that could serve as a source for seeds flying out of this area or plant shrubs growing with roots out of that. It's not only a refuge for plants, it's also for the native animals, of course.
Okay, and the next one, oops.
That's
Is the next problem is erosion. So after the fires, if the ground is bare and if we have heavy rains, there's a big danger of erosion. Studies in other regions of the world, for example, in New Mexico, showed that the soil and rock eroded 1,000 to 10,000 times faster where there had been a wildfire. And for example, here on the picture, you see signs of heavy erosion due to heavy rainfalls in unprotected land, which was formerly protected by forests, and the forest has been burned, and so the soil is eroded, the humus, the organic matter is away, so the fertility of the soil has decreased. And I mean, that's probably 1,000 years worth of topsoil, that has developed over thousands of years, which can be lost due to erosion. So these are two key factors to consider for regeneration. The third one is understanding the fire risk factors. I mean, they are natural risks. So, for example, we should really be careful which trees we want to have grown in the area. For example, pine forests enhance fire chance of an area, but of course also eucalypts. I wrote that also in July, that eucalypts have an ecological strategy called Kill Your Neighbors. So eucalypts are highly flammable, but they're very able to survive fires. So they survive fires better than their neighbors, and after a fire, they have space again, they have nutrients again, and their neighbors are dead. So also a tree species which is not the best one to plant in a fire-prone ecosystem. And then, of course, the other human risks are the use of non-underground electricity cables, waste dispersal, cigarette butts, arson, you name it. Yeah, so the fourth key approach is if you plant, if you need to plant, do it carefully, use only native species, use the genetic material that is local, especially so on an island ecosystem where over the thousands and thousands of years, very special genotypes have evolved. And better to restrict the planting to the settlements and leave the more natural areas to natural regeneration. And if time and money allows, of course, it would be interesting to monitor vegetation recovery. This helps to assess the effectiveness of different strategies and identify areas that need further attention for another wildfire event. Okay, so that's it. Recently, Alex came across a quote by Andrew Knoll. This is a paleontologist and professor at Harvard University. And he said, if you hit all animals in a zoo on their head with a hammer, the zoo will be gone for good. If you burn down a botanical garden, it will be back in nearly its old shape after a few years. So that stresses the really great potential of plants to recover as long as there is still soil. So with this,
That's it.
we thank for your attention. Okay.
So
Thank you very, very much. It is incredibly interesting. And I'm hoping that you out there will have some questions to put. I think there are so few of us that we can go to raised hand. If you go to your chat on the bottom of your screen, I can go by raised hand if you have questions, or you can enter it into the chat. Thilo, Dietrich has one. Can you see that,
I
Alex?
can see it. Yeah, there's just,
I thank you.
yeah. Thilo asks whether it might be helpful to plant a ring of fire-resistant trees like carob trees or cypresses around pine forests to slow down, stop ground fires.
Experiment.
Experiment. It's an idea. It's definitely the case that the carob trees and are less prone to fires than pine trees. And cypress trees are absolutely worse to protect, but they actually need some help mostly.
In the beginning,
In
at
the
least,
beginning,
yes, yes,
that
yes.
they grow.
But cypress trees are not native, though they are culturally very important. But they are not native here.
Okay, the next one is a nice one. Thank you. Maru asks whether how does the presence of organic matter in the soils affect the presence of water and the spread of wildfires? So organic matter in the soil is produced by soil organisms, and these soil organisms, they live off dead plant material. They mineralize it, they produce humus, and they produce three-dimensional compounds of the soil, which not only keep the nutrients in the soil, they also keep the water in the soil. So it has been shown the higher the organic content of the soil, also higher the water storage capacity of the soil. So it's very, very important that we have these good conditions for the soil animals, enough plant material that feeds them over the centuries. And we keep this organic material because it helps storing the water in the soil so that the water is not flowing down to the groundwater.
Okay, John Stathatos, you have a question?
Yes, may I unmute myself?
Unmute yourself, yeah, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, can you hear me?
Hold
Yes,
on,
yes.
I'm going on mute.
Okay, Alex, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, a question that has come up all my life every time there's been a fire in Greece, which still appears unresolved, is the issue of Aleppo pines. Now, particularly on Kythera, they are, as you pointed out, if not an invasive species, certainly a foreign species to the island's ecology. The big question is, when the Aleppo pine clusters have burnt down, do we replant them? Do we allow them to regenerate themselves from their seeds, as you explained? The danger, of course, is, as you pointed out, crown fires and the accumulation of fire material in and around. So there's a strong argument that the presence of Aleppo pines, particularly in clusters, is actually very dangerous to the local ecology. On the other hand, the answer that's usually given by groups who are into reforestation is that they're cheap, they're not very demanding, and they grow relatively fast. What would your view be?
They definitely regrow themselves. We've seen that after the 2017 fire, before you were entering, when you were driving on the main road, then turning to Milapotamos, you see them regrowing, nicely green, regrowing there, a lot of trees. I was always thinking of maybe because these were naturally, so to say, naturally grown things. Maybe if they would become adult, they would be more resistant. But we did come to that point. They were burning again. So I can't say that thing. But Jasmine and I were discussing this issue this afternoon, and we weren't sure where this species really is naturally growing. I mean, definitely it makes a lot of needle debris. And this needle debris doesn't compose
Yeah.
compose in Kythera because it's simply too dry in summer. And in winter it's not humid enough. So there is no time to compose it that it can decompose again. So that's why we had this huge layers of needles of organic matter. So probably, I wouldn't cut down the standing plantations, the things close to Potamos, for example. Never would cut it down, but it needs to be maintained. That's what they tried actually in the project, to maintain it, to get rid of the debris. But I would never replant this species again on the island. Never, never.
And maybe, I mean, big trees, even pines, of course, also have their advantage. Like they have a beneficial impact on the microclimate, etc., because because of water transpiration. But The Aleppo pines, as Alex said, that naturally regenerated, for example, in the area between the main road and Milopotamos. I don't know, but probably it would be an idea to let them grow a few years so they produce a bit shade for other slower growing native species to establish and then cut them and use them as firewood.
Is that answer what you wanted to hear? Or?
It's still a little bit unclear. I
Yes,
should
yes.
add that there's a cultural dimension to this, in that Kytherians would quite rightly be very upset if certain groves of Aleppo
Yeah, sure.
pines
Yeah.
were attacked. The ones, for example, in and around the monasteries
Yeah,
Yeah, of course.
yeah.
and
No.
churches,
Yeah.
and significant clusters associated with villages and the major settlements. But I was thinking, and those obviously are untouchable for a whole lot of reasons,
Sure.
primarily
Sure,
cultural.
sure.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I am taken by your suggestion that there should be no fresh plantings
Yeah.
of Aleppo pine, and certainly not out in the country.
Yeah,
Mhm,
exactly. I mean, if they are in the settlements are better protected against fires. So, and of course, you also have very special plants growing on underground these forests. So I mean,
mhm,
it's not that they're all bad, but
mhm, mhm,
they're just more fire prone.
mhm.
Okay, thank you very much.
The question is, what else could be planted? And then we come back to the oaks, which are definitely native, but the problem with them is they need time because they are slow grow, definitely slow growers. Huh?
Yeah.
And some of these, we were reading about it. It seems that some of these oaks have 1,000 years on their shoulders, and they are old trees, but they need their time. Huh? This is not pine trees are fast growers, and you can think in generations, maybe 2 generations, and you have forests again. But oaks are different.
If I look at
Okay.
yeah, if I look at the questions, Paul, you asked whether these very dense regrowths of pines after a fire, whether they should be thinned, and I think it's a good idea.
That's
Yeah, to promote the regeneration of the broad-leaved evergreen native trees that are less fire prone. So give them a chance and prevent monocultures of pines to establish.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Alex, you ask whether we are aware of any examples of electricity cables being placed underground. Well, yes, in Switzerland they are placed underground. I don't know in Greece.
I don't know. Definitely not in Kythera, and no, I mean that's a wish we would have, but we see it clearly that's impossible. That would be again a generation, more than a generation project. Now we have another thing going on. We have all the tubes now under the roads, so that would be another huge project on the islands.
But I mean, in California, these devastating wildfires that they had in California the last years, it seems that at least some of them, or the big one was caused by, or one of the big ones was caused by above ground electricity cables, which were not maintained.
At least it should be maintained. These stations where they change from one cable to the next, and these are the places which are devastating, which are causing problems. These should be maintained, but I know this is again a wish.
Yeah. And also the goats being controlled after fire. I mean, goats is a difficult subject. I mean, it's some herbivory by goats is not bad, but they should not eat up the fresh vegetation just after the fires. So it's depending how many goats and when. But whether they are controlled or not, I mean, I've never seen it in Kythera, but probably you are here much more knowledgeable about these things.
What do you mean by here?
Whether in Kythera, people in Kythera will probably know more whether goats are being
Well,
controlled.
there's no control. It's
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
It's good that they start to put cables on the ground in Avlemonas.
Mhm. Very good, very
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
So what they do in Switzerland is now they are starting, I mean, for a century, more or less, they have put on all the cables and tubes and everything without the plan underground. Now in the cities, they start to use cement blocks with holes and, use these blocks to have all the cables, electricity cables, also the water cables, etc., at one place, so that not the whole underground is filled up with electricity
Yeah.
cables and nobody knows where they are.
Yeah. But this is a huge project. Yeah. Yeah. And regarding the goats, I mean, there are, this, I've got the name of this hill close to the airport where they have all the antennas on top. Huh? And this hill burned twice as well, before the 2017 fire. And there were rumors that this fire was set by goat owners. Huh? So this is a lot of these rumors. Ayamoni, thank you, John. Yeah, and nobody, as far as I know, nobody found out what really happened there. What happened really, but definitely there are tons of goats there, definitely there, and this hill has never really recovered after the fire. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any more questions or comments?
I can open up the microphones if you want to stop the recording now and go to verbal.
Okay, I would like to know whether whether it would be worthwhile to have civilians, i.e. volunteers, perhaps from Kythera Green, to be trained to monitor different areas of growth on Kythera, whether that would be something of interest to you or whether it's something that would be worthwhile at all.
I'm an ecologist. It would be really of interest, of course. It would be so interesting.
Yeah.
Could you run workshops to train us what to look for?
Yeah, I could try. Yeah.
I
Just
put
thinking,
Kythera Green then.
yeah, I'll tell you where.
So when we are
Probably.
there in spring, we could, because you're then a bit longer here, you could think of
Yeah,
organizing something.
yeah, yeah.
Simple, obvious measures, which are in a way, long time studies are interesting in ecology, and they are missing. So that would be a chance.
I was also thinking of bringing my colleague from work. We work with drones and do vegetation surveys with drones, but I'm not sure whether what the legal situation is in Greece, whether we could also do some drone work here, or whether it's very difficult to get the permits. Would also be a possibility.
That's something we could look into.
Yeah, yeah.
We did property surveys after the 2016 ones of various villages, but it was on a purely voluntary basis. So we had people go around and assess the distance of Harafi of all
Yeah.
people's houses. but it
Yeah.
was only for properties, not for empty vegetation. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have special cameras which assess different bands of, infrared or something else, which gives quite a lot of information. And if somebody has a DJI matrix drone, then we could mount our cameras on this drone, and then we wouldn't have so much of a problem with the legal permits, probably. Yeah, but
there's actually no legal obstruction to using drones for such purposes. And
okay.
we actually have somebody with the right equipment and experience, which is James Brynäs, who is a member of
Yes,
Kythera
okay.
Green. He's already extensively used drones in photographing settlements for his own purposes. And I'm sure he would be extremely interested in a project such as you describe.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. But Pat, what you suggested, the workshop, yeah, I would be happy to do that. And whoever is interested also to, to learn the plants and the tree and shrub species. And yeah, sure.
Okay.
Paul, you had a question regarding the orchids. That's on my shoulders. Orchids are one of these plant groups which definitely will profit of the fire. So you already saw some of the fires. The result of the fires already this November. When I was going out in November, everything was full with crocuses. I've never seen so many crocuses. That's simply because the shrubs were gone and the crocuses were passively waiting for more light below the shrubs. And now the situation was there and they were blooming everywhere. It will happen the same thing with the orchids. Maybe not next spring, partly next spring, but in 2 years, 3 year times, it will be full with orchids in this area. That's a very classic thing. These bulbous plants are profiting of this situation, and they will disappear again when the vegetation is closing again.
What also happens when there is a fire is that a lot of nutrients are released. So we have nutrients, we have open space, and interestingly, that has been shown, for example, in Sweden on islands which burned, is that the charcoal, the coal which develops, the plant coal, it also absorbs harmful chemical substances which are in the soil, which have been released by other plants, etc. So a lot of plants benefit if there is coal in the soil and they grow more. So yeah.
If anyone has any questions, you feel free to unmute yourselves.
So, Nana, did you have a question? It looked like you were trying to say something, but you're muted. No, you're muted still.
Yeah,
Hey.
it's just a thought. I mean, luckily, there is this regeneration process after a fire, but so many positive things have been said of the effects of fires on some plants that we should be very cautious, because many people could say, okay, then fires are not so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
It's a matter of how many fires and how hot they are,
yeah, of
how
course.
frequent they are. So it's not an easy issue. It's like, of course, if you have too many fires, you will become a desert because the soil is destroyed. Too much too much fires, and the vegetation will not regenerate.
And another thing, you didn't speak so much about dams and barriers, stone barriers to prevent erosion, I think. Of course, that's very important. But I mean, I'm happy to know that so many plants will grow again. We saw them in Kythera already.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, all these traditional stone walls you have in Kythera, I mean, they're so amazing. They are there for centuries and they have a big purpose also in not only keeping the goats away from certain areas, but also to keep the soil and the organic substances in place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, I think if we don't have any more questions, maybe we should wrap up.
No,
Mhm.
no.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead.
you asked us to give you some comment on the pond.
Yes, please.
But it's nothing, and it's not much to say at the moment. I mean, it seems to rain, it seems to refill, and we'll see how it develops. So, and you have digging out so much debris. So it, I mean, the point is in Switzerland where where it's much more humid, it takes about 2 years until you see real results. In the Mediterranean, it takes a bit more time, but it will come, we are sure. When these parts you've digging out, they have already recovered, certainly recovered. And the next things, with the water coming in, it will definitely recover again. So it's.
I think we told you that John actually found a small toad
Yeah.
by the pond, and they're incredibly rare,
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, yeah.
I haven't seen one in about 30 years.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. I was already told John. I'll send him some pictures. We've seen one actually in October when it was raining. They were jumping around on the road. Toads.
Wow.
Okay.
So yeah. No, it could be some. Have you ever thought about including school kids in that project?
Of doing what?
Including school kids.
We would love to. There's a
Because that
problem
would.
with we might, if somebody is interested, we might form a group to
Yeah.
do that. Schools are terribly reluctant to involve outsiders in the school. And then after school, all the kids go to Frondisterios
Yeah.
to actually go to school. That's where they learn. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to a little bit of a note on the upcoming lectures or talks. On January 25th, we have Theodoros Koukoulis as an archaeologist. He was also a two-term mayor of Kythera, and now he's the current director of our island Trifidio Hospital. But he is also a very eminent archaeologist. His specialty was Paleochora, but he knows the archaeology of Kythera very well, and he'll be speaking about the history of archaeology on Kythera.
Oh, fantastic.
And then in February 22nd, we have Professor Kevin Morgan, who's a professor of governance and development at Cardiff University. And his talk is going to expand on a lecture he gave on at the tourism conference in October. And he's going to focus on the proposed smart village strategy for Kythera, which means developing economic products such as honey. And what else was the other? Honey and olive oil, of course. And he's going to be joined by a Greek colleague who knows Kythera very well and Greece in general. And following that, it's going to be interesting because we're going to have a PhD candidate, Sophia Takeniniou, can't say it, from the University of Athens and also Belgium. And she's going to be expanding on her thesis concerning public land ownership on Kythera, which is the only Greek island to have maintained their sovereignty over public land.
Yeah.
And she's going to give us a history of the development of it and its current state, which is pertinent to all of us, I think. And then in the 29th of March, John Stathatos will give a talk on Kythera and its role in World War II. And then later during fire season, John and the fire chief of Kythera we'll discuss the role of the fire department and the municipality regarding fire season, and they'll cover the opportunities for civilian volunteers, especially in terms of Kythera Green maintaining watch posts. So that's to come over the winter. So thank you very much, and thank you, Alex and Jasmin. It was great. Good questions too.
Thank you. Yeah, there was another one actually.
That just one question that just came in, just
Yes.
regarding a comment you gave as well in the. Could you start?
So what was the pre-goat landscape? Like Alex said at the beginning, it's hard to tell, but it's most probably it was this holly oak.
Holly oak.
Holly oak. It's Quercus ilex forests. They are actually the natural vegetation together with some other tree species in Kythera, but it was oak forests.
But think of the Mediterranean, of one of the oldest area, longest used area by humans. So it has a thousands of year history, and humans are efficient user of nature. So probably in antique time, probably in Minoan time, there were not many forests left already. So this is a long, long time. Definitely during Roman time, and then also during the Venetian time, the remaining forests went down. Yeah, and the results we have now, as it is now. So that's a gradual thing of the last 3, 4, 5,000 years. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just
I think we've run out of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Dean.
Okay, have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.